What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another video. Once again, have the rabbit here, and today we're going to be doing some modifications that I've had for this thing for quite a while and just haven't really gotten to installing them, and we are kind of on a time crunch once again. Seems to be a common theme with things I'm doing, but we're going to get right into this because I gotta get this done because I want this done by MK1 Madness. It is currently Wednesday night and I need this done by Friday midday, so we definitely got to get moving on this. But without further ado, here's the stuff that we have to install. So we've got an APR Motorsport intake silicone tube here, comes off of the turbocharger as the intake tube, and that is going to be replacing our factory tube right here. Just looks a little bit cooler. So we've got that. We've also got a bunch of silicone couplers and some new piping because we are going to be reworking my boost system finally. I know that I've talked about doing this for quite a while on this thing and how I've said that I do not like the way that I have these boost tubes set up as of right now, so we are finally going to be taking care of that issue and getting new boost tubes on it that are going to be looking a whole lot better. So, like I said, we're going to be getting rid of this menagerie here, and we're going to be going from here up to there and then coming straight downward, which is going to be a lot cleaner looking. And then we're also going to take our intake and we're going to face the air filter towards the front and put a 90 on right there. So definitely going to be an overall much cleaner look, and I'm hoping it makes a pretty large difference on how this thing looks under the hood. Now the piece that I'm actually, well, I should say two pieces that I'm actually most excited to install and are actually not the boost tubes. This is something that I had worked on over the winter time, and I had made these custom pieces and I just never really got to installing them, just kind of got busy and then they just fell onto the back burner. But we are finally going to be getting them on now. So right here we have, it's going to be hard to see through the plastic wrap, but this is a wrinkle black painted intake manifold and wrinkle black painted valve cover for the truck. I'll open those up and give you guys a better look on them. But we're going to be replacing the factory valve cover and factory intake, not with an aftermarket intake, but a much nicer looking one. Obviously, this one does not look very good, and the valve cover doesn't either. Now, you also may understand now why I didn't care that much when I put this motor in with these, because I knew that I had the valve cover and intake manifold with the wrinkle black paint on it, so I wasn't really that worried about how this one looks because obviously I knew that I had the other one for it. So we're going to be installing the valve cover, the intake manifold, we're going to be redoing the boost tubes, and we're going to just be tightening some things up under the hood. I have some new silicone tubing, so all my boost vacuum lines, we're going to be hooking them up with this new tubing. And again, very excited to get these parts installed. Also have an aluminum plate here and a steel plate. So the steel plate is for the heater box here. Now, as you guys can see back in here, I've got some heater core hoses just flopping around here. I've got no wiring for my blower motor, and I've also got no heater core hoses hooked up, so really, that's just extra weight and extra things that we don't need. So, hoping to get that out. Don't know if that's going to be done in this video or not. We'll see what happens if we have time. And the aluminum flat plate that I have is to plan to go over top of here and cover up this and make this look a little bit nicer overall. The one final thing that I do have that I don't think we're going to be getting to installing in this video, just because with the show coming up, I don't want to get myself into trouble with a cooling system issue, but I do have this cool new coolant expansion tank that I got off of Amazon for like $30. So honestly, very, very good quality for $30. But the plan with this is to mount this somewhere up here somewhere as a coolant overflow and replace that one. But again, I'm not quite sure if that's going to happen in this video or before Madness. I really don't think that it will, quite honestly, because I've already got my work cut out for me, so as it is. And speaking of that, we got to get right to that. So first things first, we're going to go ahead and take off the main charge pipe, this pipe here, and the pipe that we are going to be replacing in this video. So just have a clamp that I can actually access in through the grill. So we're going to go ahead and loosen that up here and be able to remove the boot off of the intercooler itself. And then there's going to be, I have a flathead up here. It's holding the pipe to the actual turbocharger outlet right there. And then we have a screw holding the N75 valve tube on, and then the one for the diverter valve as well. And then once we do that, we're going to be able to pull that off right there, and that off there, and go ahead and yank off N75 line, and then able to pull this tube right out. All right, so while we're at it, we're also going to go ahead and remove the intake tube as well. So we got pipe going into the valve cover here. Pop that off. I cannot remember if the valve cover that I wrinkle coated actually has this correct little nipple here or not. So if it doesn't, we may have to figure something out with that. Again, I can't exactly remember for sure if it did or didn't have it. So we're just gonna figure that out, but go ahead and pop that off here, unplug the MAF sensor, and go ahead and take this little pop clip in here. Go ahead and pry that off like that. Then we'll go ahead, pull the old tube out, and remove this whole setup as well. All right, so as you guys saw, went ahead and got all the tubes removed. So got them all sitting here on the floor. Also went ahead and pulled that one off the turbo. So now you guys can see a little turbo inlet down there. Now, I have made the executive decision that we are going to do the valve cover and intake manifold first before we do the boost tubes, and that's because we already got all this stuff off, and it's going to make doing this valve cover a whole lot easier, and we're going to be able to access everything a little bit better. Overall, it's going to be really simple and super easy, but it's going to make it even easier without having the boost tubes and the intake tubes in our way. So we're just going to go ahead and do that. All right, so as you guys saw in the time lapse, went ahead and yanked the valve cover off. Really not a very hard process at all. Now, here you guys can see the valve train here. Everything looks pretty good. I'm not really that worried about it. I'm not looking for, honestly, I'm not really looking for anything to complain about because I do have places that I want to take this thing. So I don't really want to see anything bad, but nonetheless, really not seeing anything terribly concerning. All right, so go ahead and open up new valve cover. Honestly, I have not seen this thing in quite a while. I did this way back quite a bit ago. I'm not quite sure exactly when, but it was many months ago. And if you guys want to see how you do that, maybe I'll wrinkle black another one and I can show you guys the exact process on doing it. It's kind of not terribly difficult, but it definitely took a little bit of learning to figure it out 100% for me. But, you know, now once I learned how to do it, really wasn't too bad. But go ahead and open this thing up. But here you guys can see, definitely a really, really cool finish. I'm really a fan of it. I think it looks super sick, and I'm really excited to go ahead and get this thing thrown on there. So enough talking, let's do it. So truth be told, I am being a little bit lazy. I'm not gonna replace this valve cover gasket. One, it wasn't leaking before, so why would it leak it again? But also, I don't have one here with me. If it leaks, I'll put another one on it, but as of right now, I don't have one, and I wanna get this done. So went ahead and just threw some RTV on the corners where it meets up, because that's where it tends to leak. So we'll put those on and see what happens. If it leaks more, it is what it is. We'll figure it out. I'll get a new gasket. Not a huge deal, but for the sake of this video, for the sake of getting this done by madness, I need to keep rolling. So got this here, obviously looking gorgeous. Absolutely love it, and I'm super excited to get it on here, and we're gonna do that right now. So give this a look here. I am very, very excited to see how this thing looks. Oh yeah, that looks so clean, so much better than it was before. Almost looks like a professional did it. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get this thing fully installed. I am super stoked, if you can't tell by the smile on my face. But Alright, so as you guys can see here, got the new valve cover on, looking absolutely amazing. I could not be happier with how this turned out. Looks great. As you guys can see, I already went ahead and put in another factory coil because that one that was that aftermarket one that was black, as you guys saw when I clicked them into place, the one was wrong and the other, it didn't match the other three, so I went ahead and just put in another stock one. So now that all matches. I would like to get a new shiny set of like APR coils or something like that, but for right now, these will do the job. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and remove this old scratched up junk intake, and we're gonna go ahead and put on the new shiny one. All right, so as you guys saw, we got the old intake removed. Really wasn't that difficult. I'm gonna go ahead and open up the new one, give you guys a good look at it again, but as you can see here, a second, there we go. As you guys can see here, exact same, that wrinkle finish, which I really love. Definitely gonna match our valve cover perfectly, and I think it's going to make this engine bay look a million times better. So I'm gonna go ahead, fully unwrap this again, and then gonna go ahead and get that thrown back on here. All right, so got the new intake manifold all ready to go, all prepped up. So now we just gotta go ahead and throw it back on here. Now there are some PCV hoses that we have to hook up. This one being one of them. So try to do this without scratching this too bad. All right, there's that one. Now let's go ahead and set this down on here. There we go, just like that. Definitely looks super cool. I'm super stoked with how this looks overall. Getting ready to go put this thing back together. We're gonna go ahead and throw all this back on and then gonna see how it looks. But like I said, already super stoked. This is looking absolutely sick. It is in fact another day. It is actually less than a day to madness, and this thing is still kind of in pieces, so definitely got to keep moving on this to get this done in time, but I think we should do it. Definitely moving along quite nicely. Glad we got the valve cover and intake all done. Now we're moving on to the boost tubes. I did actually do some things off camera to start to figure out what exactly we're doing. So I did go ahead and figure out how this pipe is going to go for the charge, the first start of the charge pipe right here. So I ended up figuring out a way, to clamp that with the new boots that we got. So that's going to be how that is. Also kind of figuring out with our new silicone tubes how we're going to run this around. So next step really is going to be taking this section of stainless pipe and cutting that section to the distance that we need. Now, like I said, I did some measuring, so found out we need a 22-inch piece and a 6.5-inch piece. So we're gonna need a 6.5-inch piece to connect this tube here to the 90 that's gonna connect to the 22-inch tube that is going to go down to there and be the main charge pipe along the side. So that's gonna run along there, and that should be pretty good for what we're looking for out of our boost system there. Now we're just gonna have to figure out some things with our diverter valve and boost solenoid port right here. That's what that's for, the N75, and that's where the diverter valve goes. So got to get that all hooked up, but other than that, moving along quite nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and take that piece and cut it into those two sections. And then also I do have this tool here, which I'm going to show you guys how to use because it is admittedly pretty cool. It is actually a bead roller. So obviously, if you don't know what a bead roll is, let me find a piece here that's got one. So this piece, for example, right here, that's a bead right there. And when you clamp down on this, that holds the tube from under pressure, under boost pressure in this case, from popping off. It has this little bead. So when you tighten it down, it can't slip over the clamp and it works. Now, if you don't have that, you'll oftentimes have tubes blow off when you don't want them to because you're putting it under load and you don't really have something that's holding it under those extreme load conditions. So with this tool that I picked up, which was about $40 from Amazon, I got this bead roller here, and basically what you do is you just turn this handle right here and tighten down on here depending on what size tube you have, and then you will just roll this roller and then you'll be able to have a bead on your boost tube, which I'm going to show that to you guys here very soon when we get to putting these tubes on. But as of right now, I'm going to go ahead and cut those tubes, get them where we need to be. All right, so as you guys can see here, went ahead and got that tube cut up and got it hooked up here. So got that 90 hooked up down there, and we've got the tube setting. It's gonna set right about here somewhere. So already definitely looking quite nice, very happy with it overall. But the only thing is, this distance is now shorter than it was when I had initially planned it, so that's why I'm glad I didn't go ahead and cut both pieces at one time. So now we're gonna just have to cut a connection piece that connects these two right about there, clamp the two, and then that should be good to go for our main charge system portion of this project. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this. This is the remaining part of the stainless that we have left. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this, and then I'm also going to show you guys how to bead roll on this thing using the tool. Now, I didn't show you it on this one, honestly, because it was really long and it was kind of a pain to deal with. So we're gonna go ahead and show you guys on the shorter one. Definitely be much easier to see and much easier for you guys to understand how the tool works. But honestly, it's a really great tool. You're gonna be very surprised when you see how nice the bead rolls actually look. It looks quite professional, honestly, and looks like the way if you were to buy it. So definitely super cool. But gonna go ahead and cut that tube and then show you guys how to use bead roller. All right, so this tool is pretty simple to use overall. You end up putting it in the vise, so it has a little tab down at the bottom here, and you just put that in the vise, crank the vise down on the bench, and then that holds it sturdy. Now the next thing you do is you take your pipe that you have here and go ahead and put it over top of the small roller, and then the larger die on the top is what you turn this knob for. And as you turn this knob, you're gonna push it all the way in and then tighten this thing down to a decent amount. And then you're gonna take the crank handle and you just turn the crank around. I don't have a vise that's right for this, so I have to take the handle off, put it back on. But you just turn this around, and then you just make sure that you hold the pipe up against the metal on the flat part on the actual tool itself so that it turns nice. But just go ahead and turn this around. It may try to come off, and you just have to hold it in the direction you want it. But as you see, got the bead there, so you go ahead and get the whole way around. And then once you do that, we got the whole way around here. Just go a little bit more, but there we go. So then go ahead, take this and unscrew it. And then right there, you have a bead, as you guys can see here. Real nice edge right there. Definitely super nice, and honestly, like I said, looks quite professional overall for like a $40 tool off Amazon, and that you use in a bench. Definitely looks way better than you would certainly expect. Now I'll go ahead and come over here and show you the factory VW. So this is what left the factory from VW, and this is what we made. I don't see that much of a difference there, and for a $40 Amazon tool, I really can't complain overall. Definitely works super well, and definitely worked for what we needed to work on. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this other side, then we'll go ahead and get this piece thrown in the truck. All right, so as you can see right here, got the new connection piece in, whole boost tubes are all on, and this thing is looking pretty sick overall. Definitely way better than the tube that was just coming directly down to here. I'm really a big fan of this. But next step of this is going to be getting the diverter valve hooked up, getting the N75 lines hooked up, and of course, getting the new silicone intake tube on that we've got sitting over here from APR Motorsport. So this is gonna sit in right there, gonna get this cleaned up, but that silicone tube is definitely gonna match nicely with our black silicone here, there, over here, and of course, our black intake manifold and valve cover. So definitely gonna be a good addition. Gonna have to put this in here and then take our intake and 90 that and put it right about here somewhere. So that's gonna be the next project. But first off, gonna go ahead and get the diverter valve hooked up on there and then start to get this tube on. All right, so we got our inlet tube all cleaned up, ready to go in. So I'm gonna go ahead and slide this down in here and then pop it down onto the turbocharger itself. So kind of got ahead of myself a little bit, and as I mentioned previously, I'm on a pretty severe time crunch here. It is currently 10:20 in the night. Madness is tomorrow, and this thing's got to get done. However, we are very close. It's an absolute train wreck in here. There's stuff everywhere from me building these boost tubes, and you know, we pulled out the painter's tape band-aid right here, so things are getting serious. But either way, check out what we've done here. So boost tubes are all hooked up, got diverter valve stuff all taken care of, all the N75 lines, the intake, all of it is all done, and we got it all together. Got the APR silicone intake tube hooked up, just everything all taken care of. And overall, this thing is looking absolutely amazing. I have never been happier with the way this thing looks under the hood, and honestly, it's just everything I've been looking for this thing. It's looked pretty bad for quite a long time, and I'll throw a picture in right here of what it used to look like and now what we're working with at this point. So just a pretty severe difference overall, and I'm very, very happy with how this is turning out. For sure, couldn't be happier with it, really. Everything went well. I'm really glad for that, and I'm glad that we were able to make everything work with all the stuff that we have here tonight, because obviously I don't have time, nothing's open, and I need to get this done. So either way, got it all wrapped up under here. Now there are a couple more things that I would like to do yet tonight. One of which is I want to put a filler panel over top of the radiator here, and I do have a piece of aluminum flat stock here, so you get the vision. We're going to be putting that across from there. So that is a plan, and I'm thinking about potentially, maybe, I don't know, making the coolant reservoir go on, because I feel like that is really just going to tie this whole entire under the hood together, getting rid of that coolant bottle. So I don't know, I'm going to think about it. We're going to see what happens, but we'll see how I feel after I get the filler panel done. But either way, overall, super stoked with how everything turned out under the hood. Definitely doing quite well. One of the things that I do have to do is I'm going to have to take my MAF wiring and extend it a little bit, because it is a little bit short. So not a huge deal. We'll get that taken care of. But either way, super stoked with how this turned out, and overall, just everything went way better, honestly, than I expected. We didn't have any really major hiccups. So, you know, knock on wood, everything's all good. But really happy with how this turned out, and just overall definitely went well. So we're gonna go ahead and figure out that filler panel here and potentially do the coolant reservoir. But other than that, that's gonna be it for this underhood dress up on this thing. Definitely getting it right where I want it to be. Also considering the idea of making this Mark V battery box cover work over top of my battery. Again, we'll see how I feel, see if we can get that done yet tonight, but not quite sure what this is gonna happen and what's not, because I'm coming off of a really hot work day and I'm kind of pretty tired. So we'll see what happens. But either way, we're definitely gonna get that filler panel on for sure yet tonight, and hopefully maybe some of those other things. Alright, so I did end up fashioning the Mark V battery box cover onto here. This is going to be kind of individual to me because I have this Mark V battery box, so it was the battery tray, I should say. So it was very easy to put this in. Just had to make some trims here and there, but got that fitting on there. Also went ahead and put on the filler panel over top of here. Definitely feel as though looks a lot better overall, and just in general, this thing is looking super good. I am super happy with it overall. Definitely well worth the effort and the time to make this happen, because quite honestly, I couldn't be happier. Now, I do still want to get that coolant overflow figured out, but I don't think that's going to happen by the time of Madness, and that's okay. We got a lot of stuff done, and it's seeming pretty good. So I'll take it out for a drive tomorrow, make sure everything's doing good, but otherwise, definitely looks good. So, really appreciate y'all for watching. Hope that you guys enjoyed watching me install this stuff. I'm definitely very happy with how it turned out. I think that it transformed the engine bay of this truck 1,000%. Looks so much better, and I'm really happy with it. But either way, I really do appreciate y'all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Stay tuned for the next one. Peace.